Welcome to Between Nerds. Today the nerds are living in the future to make some nerdy content to your nerdy sweet ears. And I'm here, I'm Aldo Mendez. I'm here with my co-host, Drew Elias.
Hi guys, Drew Philip Elias here. You are listening to this hopefully on March 28th. Today, real life, it is March 19th. I am probably out of town at a work convention in Colorado right now. So me and Aldo, as the responsible content creators that we are recording a special episode on the anime film Paprika today.
Well, we thought it was going to be an easy day to talk about a conversation about a movie of one of our past content talks, Mr. Satoshi Kon. We watched Perfect Blue back in season one, together with the Grave of the Fireflies and Akira.
We really fucked up that one. We had too much content for one episode on that one.
Crazy. We might even have to touch back, but not really, but yes.
At some point, yeah, but like there's just so many new things
Correct.
coming out that we still haven't watched. I don't even know how we're going to circle back.
Correct. And then we jump into this fucking fever dream of what is Paprika 2006.
Right.
And man.
Yeah, it's a clusterfuck, but at the beginning of this episode, if you are listening to this during the last week of March, then that means you have until March 31st to use the hashtag for this month. That's hashtag Nerds for Refugees. Please use hashtag Nerds for Refugees in the original tweet, Instagram post, or YouTube comment to be entered into our March giveaway. For every like and retweet, we will be donating to the Hope Border Institute for El Paso, Las Cruces, and Ciudad Juarez.
Did you mention that by the time that they listen to this, they will have 3 days remaining to use the hashtag?
Yeah, I said until the 31st.
Yeah? Okay, cool.
Yeah. But so, last opportunity. Please use the hashtag if you want some cool, free anime shit that was tailor-picked for your interests.
Last month was a dud. We also have a nice nerd down for you guys. We haven't done a nerd down. Well, we have done a nerd down, but I feel like this one's special.
Well,
because we are unfolding, we are debuting one of the segments we've been wanting to bring up for a while.
Well, here's the thing about this nerd down. If you're listening to this on the 28th, Aldo's gonna cut out the nerd down that we're gonna do right now and include it and we'll have included it at the tail end of the episode that's coming out the 22nd.
Correct.
So
you will have the nerd down before this episode.
Right. So, but like us recording this on the 19th, it's breaking my brain trying to think about
It's a lot of
time.
brain juggling, guys. It's a lot of brain juggling.
It's Inception.
Yeah, it's Inception.
A la Paprika.
A la Paprika.
A la Paprika. And I do want to talk a little bit in the beginning of this episode about Mr. Satoshi Kon real quick. Like, he kind of is like if A24 produced anime, it would be Satoshi
This man
Kon.
alone.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Because we watched Perfect Blue, which is it's a fever dream. It wants you to be in a state of not understanding
Unconsciousness almost.
Yeah. It like mania, like what it means to be interpreting the data you're seeing around you when you can't interpret it properly.
And I'm glad you brought this up. I'm glad you started off with Mr. Khan first, because this movie Paprika, it is about something, but that's not the point of the movie.
Right.
You know, it has its plot. If we were gonna compare this to Inception, Inception has its own ending with Leonardo DiCaprio, and we all are, always hooked in the story of Mr. Leonardo DiCaprio in this movie. This is not what that's about. You have characters, you see a development story with these characters, but that's not the point of the story. This point of the story is like a painting. It's like a conversation piece almost.
Yeah, and like Satoshi Kon also has like a really, really high rated movie besides Perfect Blue and Paprika called Tokyo Godfathers, which I almost picked for this episode. I was really on the fence. I knew I wanted to watch this Satoshi Kon work. They're both rated like extremely high, but for whatever reason, Paprika is rated higher. And I say for whatever reason, but there's a definite reason. Like Paprika is an experience. Would I call it like one of my favorite works, or like something that like I would enjoy watching in? Maybe not. But like a la how I see A24 films, it's kind of like that. You know what I mean? Because Would I want to watch what we were just talking about before we started recording?
The Killing of a Sacred Deer, an A24 movie with Colin Farrell.
Right. So that movie's disturbing to watch. Like, it's downright uncomfortable, which is the point, which is why it's good. But does that get me excited for subsequent watches?
And there's
Not
no
really.
and there's no crazy shots. There's no crazy fantastical theme to the movie. It's just dialogue that makes you go insane.
It like it's literal stage direction being like, make this uncomfortable to watch. And that's insane. And Paprika is not that. Paprika does have visual effects that are absolutely insane. Paprika has a plot which it seems like Christopher Nolan straight up stole for... not stole, but like, come on. The similarities between Paprika, which came out in 2006, and Inception, the Christopher Nolan classic that came out in like 2011, it's weird how similar they
To
are.
Mr. Nolan's defense, he did say that he got his inspiration to make Inception from this movie.
You're lying. He said that?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that at all.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So
that's cool.
No, wait,
That's cooler. even.
But calling Paprika Inception does not make it justice, because Inception has this Hollywood sprinkle all over it. It
it has big stars.
and Paprika. You know who Salvatore Dali is?
Yes, I know.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know who Salvatore Dali is.
The paintings are so crazy, and that's
He
almost
he did the
what
melting
this is.
clocks, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
the perception of time, I believe
Yeah,
it's called.
yeah.
And it's this movie. It's
It's Salvador Dali meets Inception.
correct. But then again, like because I try to do my homework, guys. I'm telling you, when we thought this was gonna be an easy conversation, we completely fucked up because I had to watch it 3 times.
I watched it twice.
Once to blow my mind, twice to understand it, and 3 times to be able to talk about it.
Right.
Yeah.
I watched it twice, and like I honestly feel like I should have made more time in the week to watch it the third time. But this week I was also watching Fruits Basket, which you probably already listened to if you're listening to this episode. But it's Paprika's something else, man. Like, it knows it's gonna fuck your brain, because the first time we watched it, we were here in my house, and
A week ago.
Well, if you're listening to this 3 weeks ago, and we had friends of the pod, Christopher James and Roby Quintela, at my house, and maybe we shouldn't have pre-gamed the movie because we were drinking. I didn't think like I was lit or anything, but then the movie starts and I was just like, what the fuck is going on? Like,
And as we were like initiating our night, I was like, let's get rid of the movie first before we get a little bit too lit to even watch
I
the
wanted
movie.
to keep playing Mario Kart and play Mario Party. Yeah. I was about like pre-gaming it harder, but like I'm glad we watched it early in the night.
Which didn't even help, because now it's just it's still like a mind fuck. And what I was gonna say, like the message of like Mr. Khan here, I mean, just reading and doing my diligently, what's that word?
Due diligence.
Due diligence to like at least try to understand what he was trying to get across with this. It's kind of nice because, like I said, this movie follows a plot, but the point of Mr. Khan's was to mix in like delusion and surrealness and all these crazy themes to that movie, which it does, and that's why it's such like a weird art piece for anime.
Yeah, and I love when anime does shit like that, because I feel like we've watched certain works, even by big studios, big names involved in production, where it's clearly a statement piece, but it's not good.
Like Lighthouse. The Lighthouse was obviously its own thing.
The Lighthouse is disturbing. It's a testament to good acting, but it never wants to be an enjoyable experience. Paprika is still entertaining,
Yeah.
which is a really big difference there.
Well, I was entertained in the Lighthouse.
No, I wasn't.
I watched it like 3 times.
I didn't have fun at all.
I watched it twice in theater.
As opposed to something like Uncut Gems. And see, we're just naming like A24 titles right now, because that's what like all of Satoshi Kon's like works feel like. They all feel like these weird statement pieces of pushing the boundaries of what you would call like an anime only film, which is dope. Like if if something like Studio Ghibli like redefined what it meant to be an anime film, right? And like it's so comfortable filling this space that it created and just reaffirming that space every 2-3 years. It's not innovative at a certain point. Studio Ghibli hasn't been innovative in like what 10-15 years at this point. It's not to say that these films are bad, but like would they stick out like in your brain? Like not really.
And with a not, I don't want to say saturation because it's not saturation, but Ghibli does.
I would say
You
I would say that word.
You would say saturation? Okay, maybe yeah, maybe saturation. Can can you reach and grab a handful of Ghibli movies and have at least like 4 bangers? Yes, but you will have like 10 mids. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And here, as we've noticed with this conversation of anime that we've been having for the past year and a half, almost 2 years.
Almost 2 years.
Big pillars like Ghibli, like Shinkai,
Yeah.
like what was the guy that we mentioned the last time with the guy that made oh man, I'm blanking out here, but us realizing that this is another pillar to another aspect of anime is super sweet.
Yeah.
Because at first, I mean, I know Perfect Blue, and I bet a lot of our listeners know Perfect Blue.
Yeah, yeah. This is what, like, when you start talking about anime or even, like, not even obscure, but, like, things that are not entirely mainstream, once you start getting into anime conversations that aren't just shonen-based, like, Perfect Blue is one of those first things that comes up. It's like, you gotta watch Grave of the Fireflies, you gotta watch Perfect Blue, did you watch Akira? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's movies like this, and it's just, like, it's
It's because, like, alone talking about Perfect Blue, yes, it is a great masterpiece, and some people that might not know a lot of anime might be like, oh, this is its own thing. When this guy has literally done Tokyo Godfathers, Paprika, and Perfect Blue, and they're so the same thing.
He made the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure OVA. Like, the issue with the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure OVA was that it was too much of Satoshi Kon and not enough JoJo's. Like, that's a testament in and of itself. Like, that's it, like a weird thing to think about, because like Paprika is about dreams, right? So we're comparing it to Inception, we're comparing it to, it reminded me of Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. It's about, so when I mean it's like a blend of Inception and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, it's about a technology piece called the DC Mini.
Fixing trauma to dreams instead of, like, hijacking of, like, avoiding terrorist threats,
but that
dream stealing.
But see, that's what I mean. That was the plot to Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which
Yeah, correct.
which came out around the same time. So like these were probably
Somebody
made,
has some explanation.
these were probably made independently, and it's weird that like they had the same idea at the same time. Because the plot to Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which is my top 3 films ever, I can't even tell you how many times I've watched Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Like it's about a technology.
2004.
Oh, so Paprika might have even been based around Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. But anyways, the plot to Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is that we have a technology where when someone's sleeping, you put a helmet on them and you can delete their memories, or it's seen as a form of therapy, but like more like an invasive surgery almost. Like you are deleting portions of somebody's memory to delete traumatic events.
Just like war PTSD.
Right. So it's like if I come back from the war in Ukraine and I'm all fucked up because I watched all this crazy shit, I go to said therapy and they will delete my memories like during my sleep through my dreams. Through me re-experiencing my dreams, they will simultaneously delete them. Paprika is about using a technology called a DC Mini to kind of psychoanalyze your dreams or psychoanalyze your memories.
To fix trauma at some point.
To fix trauma, but like the first example we get is a police detective trying to solve a crime.
Because we're following we're not following. We're overlooking the actions of Dr. Shiba Atsuko, who is the therapist.
Atsuko Shiba.
Atsuko Shiba, who is using the mini thing. What is it called?
DC.
The DC mini to interact with these people's brains.
Right, and we don't realize it's her at
Yeah.
first because the opening scene in Paprika is a circus, and it's this detective character that I was describing, Detective Toshima Konakawa. So Detective Konakawa is looking for somebody, and we don't know it's a dream. We don't know it's a dream, right? So he's looking for somebody in the crowd, like a terrorist or a murderer or something, in the crowd of a circus. And then all of a sudden he's transported inside of the cage. And then projections of himself start attacking him while he's in the cage. And then we start seeing other like dreams or insecurities he has. So like if he sees himself as this super badass detective, then he has dreams or anxieties about like Bond scenes, like he's in a train and he's getting attacked and choked behind the neck, which reminds me of like a James Bond scene. Or he's Tarzan having a beautiful woman like attached to his back while he's swinging on trees through a forest. But the point of analyzing the different layers of his dream, which again reminds me of Inception, is to get to the point where the point of his memory where he's thinking about a murder case he's trying to solve.
An unsolved murder case that
right.
has been troubling him.
Right. Like it's not only work related at this point. Like he's thinking about it out of work. Like he's actively losing sleep and his social life is damaged by
TSD. Great point, Aldomator.
It's an obsession that is hurting like every aspect of his life.
And I'm glad we are having, and we're maneuvering, we are willing this conversation very good, because remember I talked to you about like that writing style that Seth Rogen's movies are, is like the little X and big X.
Yeah.
That you think the movie goes somewhere, but it's actually just to get to this other thing.
Yeah.
And this is how it feels like.
Yes,
you know?
Exactly. It's like a narrative fake almost, because if the point of a fake is to like think for extended periods of time that the plot is one thing and then switching it at the last second, that's exactly what Paprika does.
But once you know, you see it all throughout.
Right.
Yeah. It's not just like a flip, like a switch flip, like flip switch.
And at the same time, like I'm describing these different layers of his dreams, of his memories. There's this girl Paprika there, which is like this red-haired, like uppity spirited, like girl that's navigating his dreams with him. And like obviously she's the center point of this movie. She's the titular named character, but what we come to find out is she's not even real, which like in and
Like
of itself,
Princess Mononoke.
yeah, it took me half the movie to even realize that she's like a dream projection of Dr. Chiba.
Correct.
Because Dr. Chiba is a psychologist, probably psychiatrist, I guess, / engineer that is working with the mastermind of the DC Mini Technology, who's Kosaku Tokita, Dr. Tokita, who's a genius who
Created
the DC Mini, which I always bitch about like characters that are super like science, like all around science characters, but this one kind of makes sense because it's like you have to have engineering expertise to be able to produce a piece of technology, but then if you're going to create
a piece of technology, you have to go into the specifics of what that technology is going to do.
Right. So it reminds me of people that I knew from high school that majored in like bioengineering. So now so they double major in both biology and engineering, and that's how you're working for a bioengineering company. That's kind of how Dr. Tokita feels. They call him a genius flat out, not just nameless science person that knows every piece of science, but like he knows psychiatry, he knows how to analyze dreams, he knows the science of dreams and REM sleep. But he also is enough of an engineering expert that he can make a piece of technology to apply it to psychiatric therapy, which is like my favorite writing for this type of character.
It makes sense. That's why. And
Yeah.
and it's weird that one of like the paths, and if you guys remember, or the maze. I don't know if you guys remember Inception, but like the plot to Elliot Page's character in that movie was to be the maze maker, or the maze creator, to make the dream.
Ellen Page.
Elliot Page.
Ellen. Oh, he changed his name. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. At the time, it was Ellen.
Yeah, at the time it was Ellen. Yes, it is. And he's the one that is supposed to build these mazes to navigate the dream, so the person who the person dreaming wouldn't notice that there were people intruding in his dreams, because that will drive him crazy. In Paprika, this is what happens.
Can I talk about that point for a little bit?
Go ahead.
Like, part of my homework to talk about Paprika was I rewatched Inception the next day, like insanely hungover, because I was hanging out with Aldo while watching Paprika. Like I didn't leave the dark room until like 5 p.m. the next day, but like I'm watching Inception while royally like hungover, and it number one, Inception almost feels kind of dated, because you see how Ellen Page at the time is dressed, and it looks super corny, and like it, like realizing who Elliot Page as an actor is now as a transitioned trans man, I feel like you see it at the time, because yes, he was acting both as a female in the movie and acting in real life as a female person,
Yeah.
because it's so clear, and I
got
don't
tired of it.
I don't know how we never saw it, because even if you watch Juno,
Well, I did.
I didn't. So even if you watch Juno, it feels like he's never comfortable like playing a woman.
Exactly. Yeah.
It makes so much sense. Like, and then like it comes out that he transitioned. He never looks comfortable in women's clothing. He never looks comfortable with long hair. Like playing a heterosexual non-binary, or I guess binary woman.
Yeah.
He never looks comfortable playing that character, which, so it almost makes more sense now that he transitioned. I'm like, so that made me like happy for him.
Absolutely.
While watching
Absolutely.
Inception this past week, I'm like,
Just
good
like
for him.
Just like Kalpan coming out.
Yeah.
The guy from Harold and Kumar. You know what I'm saying? It's like, power to you, bro. It's like, you make some of the funniest shit like I've seen.
Wait, who?
You know? Kalpan, the Indian dude from Harold and Kumar.
He transitioned?
No, he's gay.
He's gay?
Yeah, he's been married for the past 10 years or some shit like that.
To a man? I didn't
Yeah.
know this.
Yes.
Oh, what? Mm-hmm. And that's crazy, because there were so many like
His movies are so hetero.
they're so hetero. They're almost homophobic, bro.
But it's the same thing with what's this guy named? The guy that comes out in your favorite show?
Which one?
Patrick Harris, Neil Patrick Harris.
Oh, Neil Patrick Harris was always gay.
Yeah, I know, but it's almost like that. Like, his characters are always so hetero. You're like, how can that guy be gay?
You know why that makes sense to me, and why those things are so funny? Because it's like a gay dude making fun of straight men.
Exactly.
It, like the exuberance and like the extremity.
And you're like, he nailed it.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like when I was in college and dudes just being super extra, be like, oh, I booked this girl, I booked that girl, I haven't showered in 3 days, I'm gross, I'm nasty, like, but like watching like a gay dude make fun of straight men like that's hilarious, bro. That's so funny.
And like, to Elliot Page's transition, shout out to the production of the Umbrella Academy. I believe that they were willing to keep a pause to season 3.
Yeah.
But season 3 is still coming out. But I think they were giving him time, to do his whole thing.
I forgot Elliot Page was in that, actually.
Yeah.
I forgot that was a show. I never finished season 1.
But if we reel it back to
What
the
are we talking
conversation
about?
of she's a maze maker.
Yes. So in Inception, so you're right. You're right. Like, the issue in Paprika is we're using the DC Mini to psychoanalyze people's dreams.
And Paprika is the maze maker in this position, I believe.
Kind of, but she's also like
The guide.
She's also Leonardo's character,
Correct.
where she's actually performing the therapy. But the difference is that, like, in Paprika, anybody that's used the DC Mini, if a terrorist like steals an incomplete piece of DC Mini technology, they can invade everybody's dreams at once that's ever used the DC Mini, and kind of like
Do like a
they
purgatory kind of.
right. They kind of like mash everybody's dreams together that's used the DC Mini, and create like a fucking fever dream. So if you were treated for depression 10 years ago, and a terrorist steals DC Mini technology, invades everybody's dreams at once that's ever used the DC Mini, because you had said therapy.
He's like backed up in some memory.
Yeah, you are forced into like this psyche, this super
Spiral down to madness kind of thing.
right. But it in like, I like the metaphor in Paprika, because the collective dream, the collective fever dream, is a parade. Because if the point is to parade down into a singular consciousness, everybody's bullshit, everybody's nonsense that you're thinking all day is all funneled into one physical parade, like parading down the dream landscape. And it's like
A never flowing river of crazy trauma.
yeah. Like having all that in one spot is terrifying.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you brought up the theme of when you do fix it and when it comes to that, because I was mentioning earlier that if the person knows that someone is in their dream, it's almost like a privacy violation. So its own mind is trying to go insane so they don't see their insecurities.
Right.
You know?
Which was the thing in Inception, but not Paprika.
But yes. No, but in Paprika too. Like
Okay.
in Paprika, if they would use the thing, they would start like having like some secondary effects to it.
Oh, okay, I got you.
You get me?
I got you. So we're talking about a bunch of shit, but canonically, if the first few scenes are going into Detective Konakawa's dreams and him trying to figure out the murder, the next bit is kind of confusing but also fluid at the same time, because he snaps out of the dream. Paprika's there. They're in a hotel room. He has the DC Mini on his head, and they're talking about the technology, the sci-fi bit here, which is that like we developed the DC Mini to go into people's dreams and like give them therapy, but also the confusing part at the same time is that directorially it does not want to tell you when the dream ends and when real life begins, which feels like a Christopher Nolan kind of thing at the same time. You know what I mean? So Paprika is in the hotel room. They're in robes. Like they're talking about like the psychotherapy, and she dips out, and he's like enamored with her because like she's lively, she's pretty, like it's like when sometimes when dudes in real life like don't realize that girls are just nice. It's
That
one of
happens?
those when girls are just nice and not actually into them. Like I feel like I see that memed on like Twitter all the time. That's like, dude, she's just like nice and like energetic like that. That does not mean that she's into you. Just because she's talking to you doesn't mean that she's actually into you. Which is how like Detective Kanakawa starts to see Paprika. But the next like directorial bit, which I think is really really interesting, is we see Paprika like driving down the road, and then it just kind of molds into Dr. Chiba. Like you can kind of see that's the same person, but you're not sure because
As a first time watcher, you're not, because
yeah, the first time you watch it, you're like, no,
you're questioning everything at this point. Like once you realize that you're like, okay, this is a fucking fever dream. Like you start questioning like, who is Paprika? Is Paprika just the software? Is Paprika like this Skynet fucking thing going on?
Yep.
But then like the mention of like, oh, the DC Mini has been stolen. The DC Mini has been stolen. I guess that was my point to like how Paprika maces the dreams.
Yeah.
So he gives this detective a crime or an investigation.
I think what's really cool about Paprika is that it's one of those, especially in the first watch through, that punishes you for being over analytical. Like you and CJ were getting on my fucking nerves when we were watching it because you guys kept trying to analyze everything, and that hurt your understanding in the initial watch through. Like Paprika is one of those where like you need to just go blank slate, just shut the fuck up, blank slate, don't analyze anything. Like it's just take it all in, and then it will explain it to you if you haven't already tried to produce preconceived notions about what's happening.
And I noticed that like early on, but I was like, I'm too deep on it. I'm like, I'm just gonna keep.
It's annoying because these are all friends that we have on the pod, and so these are people that know how we talk about anime and how we try to break things down as an art. You know what I mean? Like I always talk about some of my favorite content creators when it comes to anime produce almost like video essays when they're talking about a work. You know what I mean? And that's how. Granted, we do it a lot more loosely, a lot more fun. We're getting inebriated while discussing things, but like at a certain point, we still try to talk about like literary tropes. We still try talking about like literary elements and stuff like that, because we don't want it to be like a superficial understanding. Even though people still get mad at us for not understanding the fucking
The
details.
superficial understanding.
Yeah. Oh my god! Like if I spend like 2 hours talking about the metaphors and the deeper meaning in
Ninja Scroll.
in Ninja Scroll, then I get fucking bitched at for not knowing the details of Ninja Scroll. Oh my god. Whatever. So that's what's cool about Paprika. It wants to punish these highbrow, like a la us, people that like view works or movies, and like it punishes you.
Yeah.
Because you spend half the movie not understanding how simple the plot is because you tried analyzing, you tried hyper analyzing something in the beginning.
Yeah, and it's like the whole argument. I believe there's, I mean, I might get a little bit too deep into like the conversation of what art is supposed to mean, but like when a pianist does performs for you and you ask them what does it mean, it's like he's not.
Is it pianist or pianist?
Pianist. Pianist, and it's like it means what it is. It is what it is. It's not nothing else besides that. It's like, I don't know. I'm the artist. It's like,
yeah,
it's whatever you want it to be.
I took an art appreciation class like, at Texas Tech
in high school.
Well, I took it at Tech. I got a B because I never took the quizzes, and I always forgot that there were quizzes online, and I just never took them.
Like,
So
look at this piece of work,
bro. I sat in the front row because for whatever reason in this giant auditorium they sat us by last names. My last name starts with a fucking A, so I'm in the front row. She yelled at me one time for falling asleep.
Oh no! Can it be anime, please?
Yeah, well, like, come on. Like, I just went from organic chemistry to art appreciation. I'm not paying attention to art appreciation right now.
Correct.
So, it's... I get what you mean about what is art, when is it art. In a lot of things about modern art and postmodern artworks is that, like, everything's been created already. You know what I mean? So, the thing about art right now is that the process of creation is part of the art. So a lot of art pieces now, you'll see, like when you see those paint splattering like pieces and you're like, how the fuck are these worth hundreds of thousands of dollars? Mm-hmm. Like they'll show or upload the process of what it meant to create it. Mm-hmm. And that is part of the art. Mm-hmm. That being like saved in history as the process for creating this art piece is part of the statement. Mm-hmm. Like it took somebody losing their mind and finding it again through the piece that they were creating. That's part of the art. The final product is not the entirety of the piece. Stop. But like for real.
Absolutely.
That's how art is interpreted right now.
Yeah.
And Paprika's kind of the same thing. Like Paprika's like, it's not about the product, which is the dream. It's not about the interpretation. It's about like what you do with it. How did you get there?
And I mean, that's a great segue to talk about Mr. Satoshi Kon. He unfortunately, I was telling you, he unfortunately died like very young. You know,
like 40-something is relatively young to be dying from pancreatic cancer.
Mm-hmm. And then, quick little cool tip about this stuff. There is a scene on Paprika where they show like movie posters of his previous work, but there's only one that is not his previous work.
Which one?
But it's called the Dreaming Kids or something like that.
Oh, okay.
So, but he was before leaving the industry and going home to die in peace. He was working on another work, which was that.
Oh.
And
because I did see that Tokyo Godfathers was there. I did see that.
Perfect Blue, and then there's Millennium Actress, I believe it was.
Okay.
But then they show another one, which is the book that is mentioned to the detective what was his name?
Kawakawa.
Kanakawa. And it when you put it like that and those fucking mind-boggling fucking art artistic procedure, we are left in the dud of what that could have been.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's disappointing. Like, and I think that's crazy because like when it comes to genius pieces, I'm thinking of like Heath Ledger or like it feels like all the geniuses die unexpectedly really young. I'm even thinking about what's his face that one that played Black Panther. I'm thinking of Heath Ledger. I'm thinking of it's weird that like it feels like it's almost like subconsciously people know that they're not gonna make it at a certain point, so like they do their best to make their statement, and these statements that like solidify you in history are so mind blowing, and you wish there was more. You wish there was so much more, but they're not around for it anymore.
Absolutely.
And Satoshi Kon, it's like imagine if Makoto Shinkai died immediately after Your Name came out. Mm-hmm. That would make Your Name even more crazy than it is right now. Mm-hmm. It's weird to think about. It's super super strange, but
I mean, and it doesn't even take a death to impact art like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, imagine your favorite artist just quits music or just quits making anime, or you know what I'm saying?
Well, you mentioned Salvador Dali earlier. Salvador Dali was severely ill at the time. Like psychology and psychiatric medicine as a whole was not defined, and like his out was his art, and that's why it's so batshit crazy because he had no outlet for it. He had no psychiatrist to talk about with his problems. Who's the guy that made the sunflowers and cut off his ear and
Van Gogh.
Van Gogh, like Van Gogh.
Manga.
Van Gogh. He like same thing. You know what I mean? Like it feels like come 20th century, like all these great artists were just severely mentally ill.
And you know it's crazy, bro, that you say that because Mr. Khan, he gets diagnosed. He goes home and like spends the remaining of its time with his family and stuff.
Was he married?
And I don't know. I haven't looked that much into it, but he goes. It says here he goes back home to his family.
Okay.
So he has like a statement to the people, to his fans, like I guess after his death, and he's like, I just wanted to go. I'm sorry I quit. So like that. I wanted to spend time with my family, and I was ashamed of like my appearance. And then a lot of outlets were like, "Well, that's weird because the last time we saw you, you didn't look sick." Mm-hmm. Dude, he got diagnosed like months before he died, so his deterioration was like super like rapid.
Yeah,
crazy stuff.
This conversation also reminds me of Kentaro Miyaru, who's the author of Berserk.
Miura.
Like it's you know what I mean? Like Berserk is never going to be a finished work because he unexpectedly died from something that he didn't even know he had.
And it's such a cult of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Anyways, we're talking about a plot. So the plot is that like we're going into dreams, but Dr. Chiba goes back to the lab and finds out that one of the DC Mini prototypes produced by Dr. Tokita was stolen, and we're assuming that it was his assistant, Kei Himoru, and like him having access to an unrestricted piece of DC Mini technology is a terrorist act in and of itself. So it's up to Dr. Chiba, Dr. Tokita, and like the chair of the department, Toru Shima, like trying to figure out how they're going to contain the situation without the chairman of the university knowing. But because it's anime, because it's a movie, the chairman, I think his name's Janae, or they just call him chairman most of the movie. When they go into Dr. Shima's office, the chairman's already there, and he's already discussing like what are our next steps for getting back this piece of stolen technology, which is extremely experimental and can lead to like abuse very easily. And immediately in the middle of this conversation, which is crazy to watch, like Dr. Shima is talking to the chairman, discussing their next steps, discussing what's happening, discussing the issue, and immediately, like it's not even immediately, like seamlessly starts talking nonsense. He's talking about kings. He's talking about the parade into the unknown. He's talking about the fridges making noise and cheering him on. He's talking about the dolls. He's talking about the parade.
And then he goes into like a loop of a phrase, like you know, you know,
It's
you
like-
know, you know, and we're like, oh shit, he lost his shit.
Yeah, like, have you ever seen somebody like so drunk that they were just in like a loop of their own memory? Or I've seen some people so inebriated off of like recreational illegal drugs that like they just go into this loop and this 20-minute loop of what of like what their reality and their perception is at the time. I saw somebody destroy like his Xbox, his room, destroy the frame to his bed because he was just in a loop and he was panicking, and he would come back into the loop and be like, why am I here again? Why am I experiencing this again? This is scary, this is terrifying, and just destroying and being hyper aggressive and manic and like peeing himself and all this stuff. And that's kind of how that reminded me of that instance while watching Dr. Shima go into the like this manic phase, because he starts hallucinating, not realizing where he is. He jumps out of a window like 4 stories off of the ground because he can't discern what's a dream and what's reality right now. And what we find out is it's because Dr. What's her face? Dr. Chiba had performed therapy on him with the DC Mini. So that made him a victim of this new terrorist who has the DC Mini. And that's when we realized that Paprika is Dr. Chiba's like dream persona, kind of. Like, she is such a stoic, stern personality in the real world. And Paprika is the exact opposite. So like Paprika is kind of like her idealized self almost. Like it's like her
perfect blue.
It's who she wants to be in this dream fake reality, this ideal reality. Paprika is who she wishes she could be. But her being like this responsible, well trained doctor professor, she
Member
can't
of society.
yeah, she can't be that person in the real world, and Paprika's her outlet for that. So and that's when we kind of start realizing it, because when Dr. Shima is in the hospital after hitting his head from busting out of the window, that's when he asks Dr. Chiba, like, have you seen Paprika in a while? I have to ask her a question. And she's like, well, when I see Paprika, I'll ask her. Because, like, it's one of those scenarios where, like, the other personality is seen through the mirrors, is seen through her reflection, because when she reflects on herself, it's Paprika. So this is where it's like this whole fucking thing, because if Dr. Shima is trapped in this dream that is the parade, that is going to the singularity of consciousness, it's up to Paprika to try to break him out of it and try to pull him out of it. And when she breaks in, Kei Himoru, who is the ex-assistant of Kosuke Takita, who's the genius that produced the DC Mini technology, like, they're assuming that Himoru's the one that stole the technology, because when Paprika goes into Dr. Shima's dream, into the parade, she sees projections of Himoru onto the dolls on the parade. And he's talking shit to her and being like, isn't this crazy? You can't save him. Isn't this weird that he's lost to this parade?
You lost him to the parade.
Right. And it's terrifying, because especially in your first watch through, you're like, what is happening?
The movie doesn't give you that time to breathe. It doesn't give you that time to think about what you just saw before getting into something else crazy.
No, not at all. And that's what's so scary about it, because I think that it's not disturbing, but it's not even like non-progressive, but if Paprika is Dr. Chiba's free self, then she's also a lot more comfortable sexualizing herself. But she's doing it willingly, so it's not a bad thing because it's consensual. So whenever she's trying to snap men out of this reality or show them what it means to like be in reality,
I completely forgot about that.
she sexualizes herself, kind of.
Well, there's a whole fucking, fellatio fucking scene.
Almost. Well,
You know?
I think the scene I'm describing right now is how she snaps Dr. Shima out of the
No,
dream.
yeah, but like the whole scene. You know what scene we're talking about?
Yeah. We'll get there in a second.
Okay.
But like the scene with Dr. Shima, is Dr. Shima starts imagining Paprika as this girl he saved out in the country from just poor circumstances or something. But what gets him to realize that it is Paprika, that it is Dr. Chiba's like dream self, is she starts like seducing him, kind of like she's like, the scene I'm describing is if he is on a throne on top of a parade being carried down on top of a mountain of dolls, she lays on top of him, and like the directing shot is like her ass is in the air, her face is up, like she's about to give him a head or something, you know what I mean? And she just starts molding into his body, and then the expression that he gives is almost like, again, that he's like getting fellatio almost. So he like eyes rolling in the back of his head like, oh, yeah, and then he starts expanding to the point that he explodes a la a climax, and that snaps him back into reality.
A la jizz.
That's what I'm saying. That's
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. So it's crazy. It's so fucking weird, because the next point is when Dr. Chiba is like, oh, it was your assistant, it was Himoru, we got to go to his apartment. They go, no one's there, and all they see are like loose dolls everywhere with their heads pulled off, like unfinished pieces of DC Mini technology laying around. But again, it starts doing this thing in the movie where you don't know what's real and what's the dream, because if Dr. Chiba is searching like the closets and everything in the bed looking for clues on where this assistant is, she stumbles back into the dream. She goes into the closet, finds a hole, and Paprika, her dream self, is speaking to her, being like, don't go down there, that's dangerous. And she does it anyways because she has to figure out where this guy is. And it shows her a projection of an abandoned theme park. And it's foreshadowing, but at the same time, it's meant to confuse the audience because we don't know when she started experiencing the dream. Because we just thought she was in a real apartment in real time, and all of a sudden she's seeing a dream projection of this abandoned theme park. Which is crazy to think about, because if Dr. Shima is the first victim for the terrorist that took the DC Mini, we start seeing like the terrorists expanding that effort and like taking over like subsequent members of like the university staff that are part of the psychiatric department that are participating in the DC Mini technology. People like parading down the hall, punching people, knocking things over, being like, I can't even remember what they're saying. It's just like, the phone is on the call. Do you want to answer the demon on the other line? I am on my way to like just talking nonsense because they think they're in the dream. And same thing, they're hurting people, they're knocking people over, they're jumping out of windows. The ambulance has to come to pick them up, and they're still hallucinating, like while in the stretcher bed. And it's sad because it's like, these are people that either experimented on themselves as part of the DC Mini technology or had actual therapy put on them. And that's why they're being victims of the DC Mini. It's so... I don't even know where to go from there.
Exactly. Because even though all these things are happening, we are still treating Kanakawa like in the back end.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So,
It's true.
So like at the end of the initial scene, when Paprika leaves Detective Kanakawa, she gives him the business card. When he's like trying to hit up on her, he's like, "When can I see you again? Can I get your number?" She gives him a business card that just has a website on it. And what's crazy about this website is whenever Detective Kanakawa like logs into it, he's transported to a bar on his computer screen, but that bar puts him into the dream. Like when I say a bar, it's like a literal like alcohol, like serve liquors, fancy bar.
No, yeah, and it's very like fucking villain from a comic book hypnotist to be like, put you in a dream with this image.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he goes in there just to communicate with Paprika. When he's like, I gotta talk to Paprika, he'll go to that bar and like she'll give him the lowdown. And that's when Detective Kanakawa starts learning more, because he logs in starts talking to Paprika, and that's when Paprika in the website, in the dream, I don't know anymore, starts like giving him the lowdown. Be like, somebody stole the DC Mini technology. This is what I'm dealing with right now. This is why like everyone's starting to hallucinate. Because in the real world, outside of the dream, Detective Kanekawa is one of the cops that's being like called to the scene whenever like people's consciousness are being hijacked by the terrorist. So he sees the professors, the doctors being stretched away into the ambulances while talking shit. And it's just
And for some reason, he can't solve that without solving his own trauma, which is like this unsolved crime from the past.
yeah. Fuck, man.
But again, I'm telling
Fuck,
you,
man.
it has a plot, and I care about the plot. But like the movie's not the plot.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's the plot of the movie is more like a structure for expression.
Yes, and as if we sit here and talk to you about this movie's plot, but if you watch this prior to listen to the episode, which we hope you do,
Yeah.
but in this case, I would like you to watch the movie before listening to this episode.
Yeah.
I mean, I would like you. Yeah, I would like you. Wait, did I say the same thing twice?
Yeah. Watch
Yeah.
it before listening to this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you yes, that's what I meant. Because if you listen to this episode, we're just describing to you a plot that you're like, okay, that happens.
We're trying to describe the mindfuck that this movie is.
Yeah.
But like again, it's a visual medium. You do have to watch it at a certain point. Because so in the backdrop of these professors like getting stretched off in the hospital, Dr. Tokita, who's the genius that produced the DC Mini, is in the background at the same time, like tearing apart the technology that they used to make the DC Mini. And other professors like Dr. Osanai are asking him, like, why are you doing this? Because if you've ever met this special kind of genius that doesn't think like an atypical person does, they just think differently. There's nothing wrong with them. They just have a different
They're just high in their own genius.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So Dr. Tokita's like tearing apart the lab because he's like, none of these pieces are recyclable or sustainable, so that means I need to tear them apart. And Dr. Osanai's like, why are you doing that? Because he's just like, this is irreplaceable piece of technology that only you can produce. And Dr. Tokita's just like, it's okay, I'll just rebuild it. It doesn't matter. Like, that would be like me making a nuclear reactor in this new innovative method. And then one day Aldo's just watching me tear it apart. And he's like, why the fuck are you doing this? You're the only person that can produce this. And it's like, I can make it better in a year. Just give me time. Like, that's weird to think about. And that's kind of the person Dr. Tokita is. Because the thing about Dr. Tokita is he's morbidly obese.
And now that you mention his physical appearance, the character of Tokita at the beginning, they almost want to think and make you think that he is the antagonist.
Yeah.
They put him in a light that is like, okay, this guy might be the one. It's like they drew him fucking fat. We usually correlate like gluttony with like with greed and being corrupt, like in animation.
In Japanese culture, nobody's this as obese.
Exactly, and this is absolutely. This is like the biggest like obese, morbidly obese character like I ever seen on somewhere besides Snorlax.
Yeah, but that's a bear. So, and they also describe his personality as he's a kid. He's just like a kid in the brain. Like, the genius of the century has the personality of like an 11-year-old child.
But then again, in the beginning, his dialogue is the same dialogue, but to the end of the movie, his dialogue that you perceived as conniving or almost like plotty, like it's like he's almost like not empathetic to what the people are going through.
It's not even
They're
that.
like, it's like that happens. It's like
I like that you use the word empathetic, because empathetic is to be empathetic is having the skill to
Put
realize
yourself in somebody else's situation.
right, it's to realize somebody else's emotions, right? But the thing about Dr. Tokita is like he's so genius, so smart. It's one of those writing tropes where like he can't see somebody else's human emotions.
Batmanish almost. Kinda, not really.
Like it's like
Tony Starkish, if he was
no,
evil?
I was gonna do something dumber. It's like what's his face from Big Bang Theory?
Oh, I don't know.
Sheldon.
Yes.
It's because Sheldon from Big Bang Theory is so smart, so genius that he cannot see something as
He feels bad for people's stupidity almost.
yes,
But
you
not
know,
really.
But he's so smart, he can't read people's emotions because that's so far beneath.
Puts
like,
him on a spectrum almost.
yes, that is exactly what I'm saying. That is literally what I'm saying.
Yes.
So that is how Dr. Tokita is, and it's scary because what gives Dr. Chiba the idea to actually go look at this abandoned entertainment park. It has a Ferris wheel and all this stuff. Is underneath Dr. Tokita's lab coat is a shirt that has like the character from this abandoned theme park. So that's when Dr. Cheap was like, "Oh, that's what Paprika was showing me in my dream, in the memory when we were at Himuro's like apartment." So they go in person and they just see a doll there, and it's like antagonizing them. But again, like dream and reality are molding because the dream is talking to Dr. Chiba. So with the doll talking to Dr. Chiba, and Paprika is like yelling at Dr. Chiba in the background, being like, run, 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 move, because she senses danger. Like, that means Dr. Chiba's subconscious, being Paprika, is like sensing danger. She steps back, and through like this like cloth canopy, sun canopy kind of thing, like Himoru busts through, who's Dr. Tokita's assistant that we think stole the DC Mini. And when he falls to the ground, like, it looks like he dropped like 20 fucking feet. You know what I mean? This movie has this theme of people like falling great distances and like surviving but having severe brain damage. But when he falls, what we see on his head is the DC Mini has like implanted itself into his skull. So the very next scene is an operating table with doctors literally pulling out pieces of metal, being the DC Mini, out of his skull. And that shows that Himoru is a victim and not the terrorist we thought he was this whole time.
And by the way, we haven't even touched, well, maybe we have, but indirectly, the animation on this is really good.
Describe it to me.
Ah, man, it's just 2006 Perfect Blue. Like, if Perfect Blue could have, like, max, like,
Both these movies,
tune-ups.
yeah, both of these movies feel like that the animation style was produced 10 years beforehand. Like, Perfect Blue looks like animation technology out of 2006. Paprika looks like animation technology out of like 2016. And like the CGI isn't obvious. It looks mostly hand drawn. When you see, and I'm thinking of the parade as the main example, because whenever we get scenes of the parade, like, it's so many pieces of motion all at once that it feels like a Ghibli film. Because Ghibli likes to do that thing where it's just like, we have so many animators on staff, we will animate everything on frame, which is something that this movie does. And that's crazy because, like, imagine being on Satoshi Kon's staff. Like, this guy has no works outside of like these big 4, big 5 titles, and he is asking you to animate everything on frame for like 20 minutes at a time. It's crazy. It's crazy to think about. So,
And if we can describe, like, how this fucking fever dream moments, like, it feels like that initial astral projection of Doctor Strange on the first movie. It's just like a bunch of like random shit happening at the same time.
which is also like one of the main complaints about the first Doctor Strange movie, is that it's like too stylized with how they show the magic. It's too stylized how they show the other realms, the subconsciousness. When what's her name, the Sorcerer Supreme, what's her name? She's called like the Grand Master, the Sorcerer Supreme, whatever.
The ancient one.
The Ancient One, thank you. When the Ancient One like projects Doctor Strange into his own like psycho reality, into his own magic powers, people bitch all the time about how stylized that is.
Oh, that's the best part of the movie.
Right, which is the best part of the yeah, exactly. Because like the first Doctor Strange movie is actually kind of boring without
Like, rub your eyes and like describe to me how that looks. Like, you can't fucking prop that. You can't. You have to CGI the fuck out of it. You know what I'm saying?
No, I got you.
Yeah.
So, we have Himoto in a bed, right? He's knocked out, and Dr. Tokita's genius fucking solution is he's gonna hook him up to the DC Mini again, and Tokita is gonna hook himself up to the DC Mini to go into Himoto's dream to figure out what the fuck is wrong with him. And immediately before that, we do get a scene where Dr. Shima, as the chair of the department, invites Detective Konakawa and Chiba to the same room where Dr. Tokita is describing like the DC Mini stolen technology to the detective. Mm-hmm. And this is where it really solidifies that Paprika is Dr. Chiba's alternate like dream persona, because when Detective Konakawa like sits down, he's listening to Dr. Shima and Dr. Tokita describe the technology and why it's a big deal that it was stolen. The minute Dr. Chiba walks in the room, Detective Konakawa can't stop staring at her. Like, he's like enamored with her immediately and goes along. He goes along fully with whatever Shima's saying, with whatever Tokita's saying, because it's almost like he's trying to impress Dr. Shiba. Mm-hmm. Because he, through his one dream experience with Paprika, is like all of a sudden kind of in love with her, kind of like anime style in love with her. Mm-hmm. He's just so enamored with this like this whirlwind of personality that he can't get her out of his head. So he goes along with it. And then when he's being walked out of the building by Dr. Shima, that's when the chairman, and we haven't even described what the chairman actually looks like. He's bald and in like a wheelchair, like an electric wheelchair. And when he hears them talking about this technology, and he hears them talking about the man-child that is Dr. Tokita, mm-hmm. He's kind of like, this is why we need to protect this technology. This is why we need Detective Konakawa to figure out this case, because this man-child produces broken piece of technology, and if it's in the wrong hands, it's bedlam. It's a nightmare. There's
it's like the nuclear codes.
Yeah, like it's like the nuclear codes being in Donald Trump's hands or something. It's
like not for 4 years.
Yeah, not for 4 years. It's so crazy. Imagine how fucking batshit that would be. But
giving fake ones is like, we got the real ones.
So
he was there like every week trying to put him in.
Right. So this is where we're at in the plot right now. And this is where we really start doing this Inception kind of dream diving kind of plotting, because immediately when Dr. Tokita tries to go into Himoru's dream landscape, he immediately gets stuck. Mm-hmm. Like, he's immediately trapped in there and part of the new parade.
He has like a robot toy.
Yeah, so his dream self is kind of like a toy, but it has free will. It has rockets. It's his ideal self. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's what he wishes he could do all day, because he's a man-child. He wishes he could just play and be.
And that character, it might have to do with like the production that Mr. Khan was working after this, because I think it was Dream Child or Dream Kids or some shit like that.
Yeah,
crazy stuff.
Yeah,
crazy stuff.
So at that same time, like
we're still in the fucking Kanagawa's fucking.
Right, so
breakthrough.
So Tokita gets stuck, and that's when Dr. Chiba and Dr. Shima are like, okay, we're gonna send Chiba in there, and we're gonna send Paprika in there to break everybody out. But at that same time, Detective Konakawa is at his work desktop, logs into the website that Paprika gave him, goes to the bar where he's supposed to meet with Paprika, realizes she's not there, and starts like scouring the dream landscape trying to find Paprika. And it's then that he's
He's reliving the little flashpoints that we got at the beginning.
Right. So, but now he's in a theater because
Yes.
it is a projection. It's
Correct.
a projection of his dream reality. And he's watching it, and with Paprika, and at a certain point, Paprika like appears next to him in the background. And this is where we get like, it reminds me of Fight Club. Like, I don't know if you remember the scenes in Fight Club where they were discussing the cigarette burns in film projection, and they're discussing frames. They're discussing.
It gets meta.
Yes,
as
it gets
fuck.
so meta for like 10 minutes, and I'm
Yeah.
just like I love
'cause
Fight Club for how meta. I love the
Brad
Fight Club.
Pitt's like, have you ever noticed these in your theater? Beep. And then
It's
like
the cigarette burn.
as a cigarette burn of what they call that in the production, where they see like an overlap.
When we used to have actual film projections,
and
they-
it's crazy because I remember seeing those when I was young, bro. Now it's not. It's just all digital. It's
Yeah.
crazy. But yeah, it gets fucking meta. Is Brad Pitt?
they
explaining
start
it
ta-
to
they
your
start
friends.
talking about film angles. Like, they're like, this is the invisible line between the frame, and this is why the camera, whenever it flips outside of this angle, it looks awkward and, weird.
And this is what this angle makes the viewer feel, and this is what this angle makes the viewer feel.
That's like my favorite part of the movie. My favorite part of the movie is like the most meta 10 minutes. For a movie that's entirely meta.
How do you feel about this angle, viewers? Does this make you feel any different than the other angles? Let us know on YouTube, please.
So, at that same time, the parade with Dr. Tokita and Himoru bust through the theater where they're having this meta discussion on film angles.
And it's so meta because the purpose of Paprika is to make cinema and dreams the same thing.
Yeah.
Like it's an scapegoat to your own consciousness to go see something for a few minutes.
Yeah, it's fuck, because what even happens then? They have to like bust out of the theater, or Paprika is trying to stop Dr. Tokita, being in his toy robot self, being like, stop, you don't know what you're doing. And he's doing the same thing that the previous like scientists that we saw go manic because their consciousness were funneled into the dream, where they're just talking about the parade as a whole. They're just like, we are on our way to discover reality and unlock everyone's subconsciousness.
And Paprika's like, stop, you're marching towards the parade. Stop, you're gonna merge with the parade. Stop. It's like, no, we have to keep doing this. And that's exactly what he's doing, like, as his robot self.
And I do like the video audience can see this, but you just did this exaggerated kind of parade, moving your head to the side kind of motion, which is like how it looks in film, and that's why it's disturbing to see, because the rest of Paprika looks very solidified. It's very good animation. It's very solid, you know what I mean? But when they're showing the actions of Dr. Tokita in the parade, it looks stretched, it looks elongated, it doesn't look real, it looks so exaggerated. It's uncomfortable to look at.
Did I make you uncomfortable when I did this?
You always make it uncomfortable. Where do we go from there?
Okay, so as that's happening, not only is Detective Konakawa purposely going to the parade to find Paprika because Paprika's trying to save Tokita,
Right.
right? But Tokita's also making really good points even though he's going insane.
Right. So at that same time, Paprika gets kind of like swallowed into the parade. Detective Konakawa kind of jumps out of the theater, and that's where Dr. Shima is looking at Dr. Chiba's dream psychosis.
We're in an audience right now. We're like at the circus, correct?
Right. But it's not immediately, because when
Not
he jumps out
immediately,
of the theater where they're having the meta discussion, Dr. Shima sees Detective Konakawa there. And
Himuro is there as another.
well, Shima
appearance.
is talking to Konakawa, being like, why are you in this dream? What is happening? Where the fuck is Paprika? And Konakawa's like, she's back in the parade, dude. She just got swallowed. I don't know what the fuck is happening. Blah, 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 blah. And, fuck, this movie's so hard to talk about. Because it's hard to keep, like, the plot straight in my head. Because the point of the movie is not to care about the plot.
Yeah.
So,
If anything, we come into what the merge of the of the salvation of Doctor Tokita and the breakthrough of Konakawa. Because if we're talking about plot wise, within this stage, within this audience, kind of a scene that we have of like letting Konakawa know that he's close to his breakthrough, like the dream doesn't let her tell him that, so he falls into this like loop of reliving his own failure of that unsolved crime.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Right, and
Yeah.
then at the same time they are saving Mr. Konika's consciousness.
Mr. Tokita's.
Tokita's consciousness.
Right.
And-
So there comes a point where we think that Dr. Shima wakes up Dr. Chiba from the nightmare that is the parade, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a scene where he's literally shaking her and like trying to shake her awake. But what we learn is that the chairman, the bald chairman in the wheelchair, is the actual person that like is the actual terrorist that stole the technology. And it's with him and Dr. Osanai, who was kind of like the third nameless party that was helping Tokita and Dr. Chiba like figure out who the terrorist was, that they stole the technology together so that they could make dreams reality, so that the chairman, who's paraplegic and is in a wheelchair, could have legs in the real world by stealing Osanai's real world body, but then also molding the real world with the dream reality so that he could be this all-powerful god being that had working legs?
It reminds me of the dome situation in Haruhi Suzumiya.
Yes, but I do like that situation, Haruhi Suzumiya, more, because the thing about Haruhi Suzumiya is that it's a sci-fi fantasy plot that is set in the real world and is always grounded in reality. And it
Goes into surreality.
right. Yeah. The thing about Paprika is it wants to mindfuck you. Like,
and it's just surreal the entire time.
Yeah. So, the part that wakes up Dr. Chiba is Detective Konakawa kind of grabs Paprika in the dream world and starts kissing her, but like forcibly. It's almost like one of these where, while going through the levels of his dreamscape, while going through the parade, while going through the circus from the beginning, through the James Bond scene where he's getting choked in a train, the Tarzan scene, he thinks that Paprika is part of his dream, and part of his dream is to make out and hook up with Paprika. So he grabs Paprika at a certain point and starts kissing her and making out with her. But it was not consented and made Dr. Chiba in the real world like wholly uncomfortable. And that woke her up from the dream that was the parade, that was the nightmare that she couldn't wake her up from. So the most hilarious scene in the whole movie is Dr. Chiba waking up, slapping the shit out of Dr. Shima just for like hovering over her, trying to wake Dr. Chiba up. Mm-hmm. Because in the dream, Paprika was like forcibly kissing Detective Konakawa.
Yes.
Fuck. If I'm describing this very confusing, it's because the movie's confusing. All right?
The movie's confusing.
It's not my fault.
And fuck, if I have something else to say about like Tokita's character here, I said at the beginning they put him in the slide that he might be the antagonist, but towards the end,
he's like the main victim,
and Dr. Shiva is the main victim because Tokita wanted to like hijack the entire thing from the inside at some point.
Kind of. He like once he got trapped in the parade, he wanted it to continue. Mm-hmm. Like this man-child, this genius to society, like enjoyed a dreamscape where he could be a child, and to the point that he wanted it to stay.
And at the end, you can, as a viewer, as a listener, as a appreciator of this medium, or this enjoyer, by the time you get to the end, Tokita's dialogue at the beginning is like he was the one that cared all the time. He was like, no, we have to do this for this person. No, we have to do this for this person. This person's going through this. It doesn't matter if we help them or not. We have to do this.
Because all the psychotherapies that they were doing with the DC Mini was never government sanctioned, not sanctioned by the university, by the chairman, by anybody. They were just doing it for the sake of helping people. which is why Dr. Chiba, as Paprika, was kind of doing illegal work because she was doing psychoactive therapy that was not sanctioned. And that's like the point to the movie, was that like these professors, these geniuses, were just trying to help and kind of almost caused like a societal collapse by causing a melding of dream and reality. Because once we realize that the chairman and Dr. Osanai are the villains here, that's when Dr. Chiba's like, okay, send me back in. It's like fucking Inception. Like, send me back in. I gotta go beat up this fucker.
Gotta go deeper.
Yeah, I gotta go deeper. I gotta go beat them up, bro. Like, they're out here trying to hijack everybody's subconsciousness. I gotta go beat them. So, I did like this bit because when Paprika like tunnels in this time, she comes in as Sun Wukong, and Sun Wukong is the main character in Journey to the West, which is a Chinese epic poem about a
Dragon Ball Z.
It's what Dragon Ball Z is based on.
Yeah.
So she glides in on a cloud and has a staff that changes size, and she's a god of the heavens that is an enemy of the main god and defeats demons. Which, that's a good metaphor. You know what I mean? That's never said, but like to come down as Sun Wukong, that's what it's implying. So then, this is where dreams and reality really start molding, because the chairman is like hell-bent on turning the real landscape into a world that he can actually control everybody, and he's trying to make it into the singularity. But then the most disturbing scene for me is Paprika gets back to the theater where Detective Konakawa was. She pushes her... She is projected into like this surgical room almost by Dr. Osanai. And he gets like rapey as fuck with her because like being a woman in a profession, like most professions, it's mostly men. She's seen as like just like this object to him, like something that he had to overcome. Like, I don't know if you ever heard, like, I heard it more when I was like 19, 20 years old, like the kind of guy that would treat women as like a conquest almost. Like, you couldn't be an independent woman. Well, I fucked her. Like, oh, that bitch, that girl is such a bitch. Like, why she like this? She's such a C word. Like, she's super mean. It's okay, bro. I fucked her. Like, don't matter. Like, that demeans her. Like, you have something over her. She might have fucked you for all I know, bro. Like, but that's how Dr. Osanai treats Dr. Chiba here, where he gets Paprika. And because he has the unlocked DC mini technology, he's able to control her, pin her down to this table, and starts trying to, like, make a deal with her. Like, if you give in and help us make this parade and make the singularity, then I will let you free and I won't do anything to you. And she's kind of like, fuck you, don't do this, don't do that. And, like, one of the most sexual acts is, like, he, like, projects his hand into Paprika's pelvis, like into her vaginal area, and kind of like pushes his way into like the top, like underneath the skin, pushes
like his
his
cerebral cortex.
Yeah, pushes his way to the top of her skull and like rips down the outer layer that was Paprika and shows Dr. Chiba in the real world. Because if
like Matrix shit.
Yeah, because if Paprika was her outer self, her shell, the shell of who she thought she was, like Dr. Chiba is obviously the real her. So then, like, he tries, it's almost like he's trying to rape her inside of the dream right then, because his logic is like, if I fuck you right now while you're in a submissive position, then I own you.
I win.
Then I win, kind of thing. Yeah. And the only reason that even happened was because Paprika, trying to break in as Sun Wukong, like, at a certain point, she doesn't realize that when she's talking to the chairman, when they go with the chairman and Osanai, when they go to the chairman's like home into an when they go to an atrium. Yeah. That is, it's a garden. It's an atrium. You know what I mean?
Yes.
They think they're talking to the actual chairman, and then he comes out and he has these giant creepy spider legs and stuff like that. That's when us as an audience, it reminded me, again, this scene reminded me so much of Inception, where it's like, holy shit, we're still in the dream. Holy fuck, we're still in the dream. Even though we should have guessed it, because we're following Paprika right now.
Yeah.
And we're following... fuck, this movie's so crazy to think about.
And even, I mean, we watched the dub. Even watching the dub.
We after 20 minutes, we switched to the sub.
Oh, you're right. You're
Because
right.
honestly...
You're right.
I'm glad you brought that up, because, like, if it's me, you, CJ, and Roby watching Paprika, I rented the dub at first. Dog, 20 minutes in,
shit.
The whole room was just like, switch it to the sub.
Yeah.
I can't, like, I thought it would be an easier watching experience, like, not having to
No
read every
way.
piece of dialogue. The dub is dog shit. The dub is absolute dog shit.
You're right, dude. And it's... Fuck, it's like watching fucking Speed Racer speed times 20, and it's just like blah 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 blah.
It's like when Rick and Morty makes fun of anime. Like there's an episode in the last Rick and Morty season where they're
Voltron.
where they're making fun of how the Voltron characters talked, and it's just like, well, if I do this, then I'm gonna have to beat you up because I'm the savior of the hero, and blah 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 blah, like typical Speed Racer '90s anime kind of speech, and that's how the dub is for this, and you're just like, this is
Dog
so bad.
shit,
This
like
is
vocabulary.
so bad.
Yeah, and watch the sub. You're right, and it's weird that it's easier.
Yeah, the sub is so much better of a watch. And I remember thinking this when Dr. Shima has that first like psychiatric break like in the beginning and starts talking about the parade and being a king or whatever. In the dub, that is dog shit. Like absolute dog shit to watch. And then when I was watching it again on Wednesday in the sub, I was like, oh, this is a million times better. Like, yes, he's supposed to be talking nonsense, but as the dub, it was just like it's unwatchable. Like how bland the expression was from voice actors at this time. And I feel like that's what's talked about all the time, because if I'm watching something like Demon Slayer dub isn't even good, but the dub, at least right now, like will go the extra mile to try to show expression. You know what I mean? But
Paprika,
it didn't at all. So at this point in the story, the chairman has basically succeeded in making dreams reality. And we see that because Dr. Shima and Dr. Chiba reemerge back in reality, or so they think. They're running down a hallway between buildings that's like it's like a skyscape kind of hallway. And a doll from the parade does this really crazy manic horror laugh in the glass walkway, which causes it all to break, which scares the shit out of Dr. Chiba. And this is where Paprika starts actively talking to Dr. Chiba, being like, you gotta run through this TV to break through this reality. And the rest of the movie is basically like the parade we've been following this whole time. This parade of consciousnesses has now fully enveloped reality through like downtown Tokyo, to the point that people in the real world are becoming their dream cartoon selves
and joining in on the parade,
which is making the parade bigger, which is also destroying the reality that is downtown Tokyo.
Crazy fucking nuts shit.
This movie is fucking wild. So, Dr. Chiba is terrified because the giant doll has now broken the glass in the walkway between the two buildings, and Paprika is directing her and Dr. Shima to like run. So what they do is they get to a TV projection where they're showing like downtown, like Tokyo almost, like it looks like Shibuya almost, where Paprika instructs her to go through the TV, and they do that. And at that same time, like the university building that they're in, these giant dolls and the dream projections are all over the place. You see toy soldiers marching around. You see like just everybody's dreams has now become reality, but they're all part of the march. So then they jump through the TV, they get downtown, and Paprika is trying to instruct Dr. Chiba to jump onto a horse so that they can jump to where the singularity point of the dream is, so that they can defeat the main enemy, who's the chairman. But Dr. Chiba, in the background, sees the giant robot that is Tokita. And she's like, no, I need to stay here. I need to protect Tokita.
We need to make him not join the parade.
Even though his consciousness is already stuck in it. Like, he already thinks he's part of the parade.
He's like, no, you don't have to. You don't have to go.
Right.
He's like, no, yes, I do. Blah, 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 blah.
Exactly. So, they kind of get to where the singularity is. And they animate it by showing kind of like it's not a wormhole exactly, but it's like a creep of consciousness where there's this black pit where the chairman is in his new ethereal godlike body form that is the center of the nightmare, of the new reality, of the new dream that he's trying to project. But there's clearly a bordered center around it where it's creeping outward. It looks like the creep a la I don't know if you ever played StarCraft, but there's a civilization in StarCraft called the Zerg, where their buildings have a creep around them, and you can only build around this creep because it's part. If everything's a living building, if everything's a living consciousness, then you can only build buildings, build structures of living creatures around this creep, which is kind of how this dream looks. So the like climax, so to speak, is kind of a flashback to the beginning of the movie, because in the very beginning of the movie there's a scene with Dr. Chiba and Dr. Tokita where Dr. Tokita's like stuck in an elevator, his fat fucking self.
When we see him in an antagonistic light.
Right.
At the beginning.
He's just like, I'm stuck, Chiba, help me. Or he calls her Atsuko-kun, Atsuko-san, like a
More personal name?
yeah, a formality that's almost like personal. Yeah. So
An
when
informality.
An informality. So when she pulls him out of the elevator, we get the rest of that scene in his robot self where he's stuck in the building. Dr. Chiba's projected dream self, that's not Paprika. Like, Paprika's watching this. And she sees this happening, and Dr. Shima's like, why is this happening? What's going on? And she's like, Chiba's actually dreaming. Because Paprika mentions several points that Dr. Chiba does not dream outside of Paprika anymore, which is not good for herself. That's why she's always stressed. That's why she's always so stern. She's not rested because her self-consciousness is not dreaming and resting and producing REM sleep.
She's not working. She's there. All the
Right.
time. And, dude, like, if the opposite of a plot hole will be like a plot hill, like Paprika has like plot mountains.
There's too much plot.
You know what I'm saying? That don't get me wrong. Like, it's not drowning you with information like Godzilla's single point is. It's not drowning you with information like maybe at some point Neon Genesis Evangelion gets, but like it comes back to that point of Dr. Shiba pulling out Dr. Tokita out of his pickle, which is being stuck in the elevator.
And that's where we learned that Dr. Shiba does love Dr. Tokita.
And dog, it's just fucking ridiculous because at the same time in Detectives Konakawa's dream, he is making his breakthrough of escaping that loop of letting the murderer escape the scene. He is able to shoot him, and he fall. And in his dream,
but in the dream, he projects it as Dr. Osanai, who was the one that helped the chairman hijack the DC Mini technology. So in the dream, Osanai is trying to jump through the projections in the layers of Detective Konakawa's dreams. Like, so we get the carnival again, we get the Bond scene in the train again, and the scene with the murder is in the middle of like a hotel hallway in the background. And every time Detective Konakawa tries to conquer that part of the dream, he like molds into the reality and he can't escape or move forward. Like, anytime you've ever had a dream and you're like throwing punches and they feel too soft, like every time they hit, or every time you're running in a dream and it feels like you're not moving forward, that's how Detective Konakawa sees like the murder scene. So him conquering that part of his consciousness, that part of the dream, is shooting Dr. Osanai from the other side of the hallway of the murder scene. And that's what like blends Dr. Osanai's consciousness more with the chairman, which gives the chairman more power to overtake this new dream landscape. And so the part where Dr. Chiba is kind of like showing that she actually does love Dr. Tokita is a flashback where she's kind of holding him while his fat fuck self like fell out of the elevator and just like holding him like
And telling me like she loves him.
yeah, just being like I don't care if you're a kid, I don't care if you're fat or obese. There's a point where he's eating a lot like in the first half of the movie, like they're at a restaurant and he's just ordering meal after meal after meal after meal.
Can I get a 7?
Steak.
Can I get a 26?
Yeah. Can I get a steak? Can I get a whole bowl of ramen? Can I get this? Can I get that? And you see her mention right then, like, yeah, you really can't. You're superficial if you care about what's on the outside, but there's only so much you could put up with. And that's what's kind of she's whispering behind his back, like while she's holding him after he falls out of the elevator and being like, I hope I don't lose this moment. I hope like you don't change anymore because I love you as is. Like she loves the genius that is Dr. Tokita.
And if we're gonna do a reverse ending to like something like Fight Club, we jump into the conclusion of Detective Konakawa's dream, in which he finally saves the damsel in distress and falls in love with Paprika, and it ends with a kiss. But then that kissing scene is an ending to a movie theater.
Right. So, but then at the other side of that, in downtown Tokyo, where Dr. Chiba's consciousness is holding on to Dr. Tokita, like Chiba implants her consciousness into Tokita, which is like kind of like a pregnancy. It's like a birthing conception metaphor.
Fertilizing.
Yeah, like exactly. It's like fertilization kind of thing. So what that creates is a child which keeps eating up this fake dream reality that the chairman was trying to create, and it turns into a 5-year-old, into like a preteen, into a teenager, into a grown woman, and she still doesn't have the power to defeat the chairman in his grown form. And that's when Paprika is still like the alternate consciousness of Dr. Chiba is watching all this happen. It's just kind of like, yeah, it's because she doesn't have the extra spice to beat the chairman. It needs a little paprika. And that's like the corniest part of the whole movie, where Paprika now becomes this new
The spice.
integrated child form of Tokita and Chiba, and is the spice that takes it over the edge, which gives her the power to defeat the chairman, and that like sends the dreamscape back to the dream reality and like destroys all of like the dreams inside of the actual real world. And this is where like me watching it the first and second time, I'm like, okay, cool. So like, does that mean everything's going to reset because it wasn't actually reality? It was the dreams. It's like, no, like everything is still broken. Like
It's a Christopher Nolan ending.
yeah, kind of. Like everything is super just like
Ambiguous.
left in the open. The buildings are still destroyed. The dreams actually did become reality, I guess, and destroy half of downtown Tokyo. And that's like the end of the movie.
Did that plot matter to what the movie's trying to tell you? No, it doesn't.
It's the whole movie. It's
Did you ever watch Requiem for a Dream? Requiem for a Dream? With Jared Leto. It's like a spiral down into like drug addiction of several players. It's like Amores Perros, almost like a blend of different stories.
I feel like I did, but like I can't remember it.
Like when that one stoner recommended me that movie in high school, like this feels like something like that. Like if some stoner dude in high school was like, "Have you ever watched Paprika, bro?" But he didn't really get it. He just likes it because of how much of a trip it is. This is what that is.
No, absolutely.
Well, it's not what that is, but it just feels so crazy that you have to see it. But if you're not trying to like hyper-analyze it, like us.
Good movie, though.
It's a great movie.
Good movie, though.
Great movie.
It's super hard to describe. I'm so sorry, like, if this doesn't make sense, but, like, that's, like, the point of Paprika. Like, it's literally the point of Paprika. I definitely recommend it. Don't get me wrong. but it's not supposed to make sense.
And if there were some sort of like anime museum, this will be playing in the background.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think we can finally do the nerd down that these nerds have already listened to the week prior.
All right, so we're traveling back to the past
Right.
to March 28th.
No,
March 21st.
So, the majority of this episode that we've been describing, we're recording on March 19th right now, currently. Today is March 19th.
So we're going back to
This
March
Paprika
21st.
discussion is coming out March 28th. This nerd down is what they would have already listened to on March 22nd. So should we go ahead and do said nerd down?
Nerd down.
Nerd down.
Nerd down.